Now it's time for us to create the braids for our character. What we're going to do is we're going to be using PFX for this. And we need to show the geometry that we had created in ZBrush for our hair. So I'm going to just turn it on. So this is my geometry that I exported out of ZBrush. We're going to need this because we're going to have to add some EP curves that will follow the shape of the braids for our character here. Okay, so with this selected, I'm just gonna go ahead and solo that. And we're going to go to our curves, surfaces tab here, and you're gonna find EP curve, okay? This is what we're gonna be using to add our curves onto the shape of the hair here that follow the location of the braids. Let's click on our mesh and make sure that we turn on live. That way, when we are drawing our curves, it will stick onto the mesh. Let's go to EP curves, and we go ahead and draw right on the mesh. Okay, so I had to turn off solo so I'm able to see what I'm drawing. So just going around and placing those curves where they need to go, and press enter. And while I'm doing the hair here, I want to just go ahead and hide the Xgen hair so that it's not going to distract me from just focusing on the braids. So I'm going to go to my Xgen here and go to preview output, and I'm just going to set the percentage really low and just update that. Alright, so we don't see it in the viewport anymore. And also here, an extra here, I'm just gonna go ahead and hide that. Even though the preview is at 0%, if you render it, it will still show the hair. This preview is only applies onto the viewport, but not on the render. Okay, so with the curve here, we could adjust it further. We could just first turn off the live here. That way, when we go to vertex selection mode, we're able to move it with ease. You can also turn on soft selection if you want. If you want to move vertices, more than one vertices at a time, and you could turn off soft selection if you need to. Alright, and once it's done, we could rebuild this so that we have equal amount of vertices and more vertices to work with here. So I'm gonna go to curves and rebuild option box, and I'm just gonna reset settings. Alright, number of spans is 4. I'm just gonna go ahead and set it to 12 and rebuild. Okay, and once that happens, if you look, you're gonna have more verts there, and it got smoother. Alright, the more you go to rebuild, the more spans you have, the smoother it will get, but then the more vertices it will be created onto the curve here. So I think 12 works fine. Alright, so once that's done, we could create another curve that's going from here on down to right at the bottom. Okay, so same process, going to select this and make it live, and go into EP curve, and going to start drawing it out, clicking it. I don't like to jump way too much from one point all the way to the next here because I don't want the curve to sink. So I think this is the optimal way to do it, and press enter. And look at the nearest here. I think this should be a little longer. The curve, it should come down a little longer. So I'm going to turn up the live tool and I'm going to go to vertex selection mode, select the vertex here, and I'm just going to move it down because, yeah, it is longer here. Comes down maybe up to, yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that's fine. Okay, so we got that curve there, and the next up is the one that's at the back, starting from here on down. Okay, so going to my EP curve and starting to draw those out. Starting from here on down. And press enter. And going to my vertex. Select the vertices here. Make sure I turn off live. That way I'm going to be able to move it down. And this on down. Alright. Okay, so there it is. Okay, cool. Alright, and with that on there, I could just go ahead and hide the hair geometry for now. Now that we have our curves, it's time for us to create a hair system for our curves and also the paint effects for them, so that later on we could convert those paint effects into curves that we're going to be using for Xgen. Okay, we could start out with this one here. And I like to name my curves that way. If I need to adjust my braids, I could easily do that. So I'm gonna go to each of the braids, each of the curves that I have here. I'm gonna name them. I'm gonna call this one braid left, one curve. Okay, and I'm gonna name this one too. I'm gonna name this one braid left 2 curve. And for this, I'm gonna name it braid back underscore curve. There it is. And I'm gonna start out with just doing this here, braid here. So in order for us to add the hair system here, we gotta go to our FX menu, and we're gonna go to NHair, and you're gonna see make selected curves dynamic. So once that's done, you should be able to see your hair system. If you scroll down to your outliner, hair system 1, so we have that now. Okay, the next thing we need to do is with our curve selected, we could go to NHair, we could go to assign paint effects output to hair. So that will assign the hair system onto our curve. There you go. And right now we see a little bit of something going on there. Okay, now to go about to make this shape like braids, we need to go to our follicles, our hair system follicles. You click on the drop down menu for your hair system follicles here. You're gonna see follicle 1. You go to the attribute editor, and you're gonna see that there's an option here for the follicle attributes called braid. Okay, make sure that is checked on, because we are going to be making this braided hair. So turn that on, and right now you don't see anything. Okay, in order for the braid to show, you need to go to hair system shape, and we need to adjust the clump and hair shape attribute. All right, we need to first have more hair strands there. Hairs per clump, we could crank it up. I like to set it at 100 to begin with. And for our clump width, we need to go ahead and crank it up. Okay, I'm gonna just put it somewhere in the middle for now. And for the subsegments, we need to have more segments here, because each of the hair strand that you see here have points. Okay, and if there's not enough segments, there's not enough points there, then there's no way this could be shaped out as a braid. So we could go ahead and crank this up. So I set it to 5. Maybe I could even set a highest value, 10. Alright, so it's a little smoother. And then going to back to the clump width, I could crank it up a bit to make it bigger. And I do want it much bigger than that, so I'm gonna set it to maybe 2. Alright, that's really big. And another thing that I want to adjust is the clump width scale. Alright, so if you guys take a look here, there's thickness here, and then it tapers down at the bottom. Okay, and if you look at the slope, there's here, it's all the way at the top at the beginning, and then it slopes down. Okay, when it slopes down here, it's indicating, showing us that it's going to get thinner. It's going to taper down around here. So you could adjust your graph for the width scale to adjust the tapering of your hair. For this one, I want to make it a little, it does taper down her hair, so I could even make this graph bigger by clicking here. So I want it to taper down, maybe something like that, because it does thin out. And I could add a point here by clicking here in the middle, right in the middle. So you could create as many points as you want to get the shape that you need here. You could even delete the points by clicking here. Alright, so maybe something like that. I'm gonna just X this out. And I also wanna just take a look here in this view and click here. And I could probably add a little bit more curves here. To add more curves, you could go to the follicle, outliner. Yeah, you could go to the follicle tab. Sorry, the hair system here. Oh yeah, sorry, it's a follicle shape one right here. And you can scroll down. You're gonna see there's a clump width, there's a density. If you set the density at a higher value, you could have more curves to work with. So if I put 1.2, you can see it's changing. Put 2. Okay, I think this probably I could probably add a bit more, so maybe 3. All right, I don't want to add too much because I don't want it to lag. So probably something like that. And I think for the hair here's way too thick, so I'm gonna go back to my hair system shape, and I'm gonna mess around with the clump width a little bit more. So I'm gonna go ahead and make another point here and then taper it down a little bit, the roots. The roots there. That's too thick. Okay, something like that. And I could go to my clump width and maybe set it to a lower value, 1.8. There you go. And I'm gonna go back to my clump width scale, and I want to make this a little thicker on here. Let's get thick here. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it really requires lots of tweaking here and there to get the right shape that you need for your braids. And now I want to go to my channel here and turn on the hair geometry. And what I also want to do is I want to go to my curve that I've initially created, and I'm gonna go turn on solo, right click, go to vertex selection mode. So with the braids that you have created here, you could move the points and the paint effects will move with it, which is quite handy to me. Right. Maybe something like this. Okay, and maybe this could go a little bit more inside. Okay, so because I want it to stick to the roots, something like that. Okay, so that is all good for this one for now. Okay, and next up that I want to do is going to be this curve here. I want to add the braids here also. I'm just gonna go ahead and hide my hair geometry. And of course, we're gonna go through the same process of how we made the braids here. Okay, so with the curve selected, we could go to FX, NHair, and let's go create a hair system by clicking on Make Selected Curves Dynamic. It's calculating. And basically it crashed and I had to reopen Maya. Yeah, it happens. When you're doing hair system, you're gonna experience lots of crashing, alright? So yeah, sorry guys, but you gotta deal with it. Okay, so I believe the hair system was created. Yep, even though it crashed, it was able to save a backup copy. And so yeah, I have that here. It's all good. So I have the hair system 2 right here. Okay, so I'm gonna just go ahead and select this curve right there. And now that the hair system has been applied here, just gonna go to the NHair again and assign the PFX output to the hair. And then gonna go to the hair system 2 follicles, follicle 2, go to attribute editor, and of course going to the turn on the braids here, go to hair system shape, clumps and hair shape. So put in some amount of hair there, and then the clump width, rank it up, and subsegments, I believe I had a highest value. And I'm gonna go to the clump width scale here. Okay, for the nearest hair, you guys look, her hair here is not tapering. All right, it's not really tapering much. Maybe it tapers a bit from the front, but here you see more tapering around here, right? The first one braid that we did. So we gotta change this so there's not much tapering because this is too much taper here. So I'm gonna go crank that up, and then maybe it tapers a little bit in the front, and then bring it up again. All right, so something like that. And of course it's too thin, so I'm gonna go crank up the clump width. It's a little too much. Another thing you could do with this, you could do a clump twist, which will allow you to kind of vary how the braids will look. All right, okay, something like that. Twisting. Also, if you see that there's not enough braid repetition here, you want to repeat it some more, what you could do is you could go to the follicle shape here and you could adjust the density mult. Okay, not the density mult, I'm sorry, adjust the clump width mult. So with that you could lower the value of it, and then it creates more repetition for the braids. And then what you have to do is you have to go back to the clump width and crank it up some more. But what I had before was fine. All right, let me just redo the twist. All right, there you go. Yeah, I think this is fine. It has enough braided there, repetition. Okay, and now I think it's a little too thin. I think I still want to make it thicker, probably around this area. So I'm gonna go back to my clump width here, and I could bring this down a bit. So this is gonna be here. I want it to be tapering a little bit smaller, and it gets thicker at the bottom. And I'm gonna go to the clump width here and set it to 0.8. Go. Now I'm gonna go to my curve, braid left to curve that I've created, solo that, go to vertex selection mode, control vertex, and I could adjust this so that I think it could be sticking out a bit, and I want this here to sink in so it's looking like it's sticking to the roots, giving that effect that's on the roots. And this could go in a bit. I think this is a little too much. I'll pull it back. Okay, at this point I do want to look at my Xgen main hair. I have to go to my preview here and make sure I have some value and go ahead and show it. That way it's going to show back. There you go. Alright, so looking at this here, I think I might need to make some adjustment. I think the braid here might be sinking in too much at the back. So I'm gonna go back to my curve, go to vertex selection mode, control vertex, and I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I'm on world. Yes, I'm on world, and it's gonna move it. Alright, something like that. And then looking here in the front, I think I could probably push this in here so it's not sticking too much. Alright. Cool. Okay, and I'm just gonna go ahead and bring it back to 0. Okay, so I am happy with this braid here. Now it's time to do the back part, and before I do the back part I need to save this because it tends to crash when I create a new PFX hair. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna save this for now. It's time to do the back part, so I'm gonna select the back braid curve and gonna go to NHair, make selected curve dynamic. This might crash, and if it crashes I'm just gonna have to reopen this and continue on. Okay, and there's the hair system 3 that's been created. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and select the curve, go and add paint output to hair. I'm gonna go to the follicles, follicle 3, because it's the third one I created. Go to attribute editor, turn on braids, hair system shape, clumps and hair shape, crank the hair clumps up, clump width and sub segments up. Alright. And I could go and solo this, vertex selection mode. Gonna just move it. Now, if you want to rebuild this, you can. You could still, even if you already add the paint effects, you could rebuild this by just going here in modeling. You could go to curves and rebuild. So I could set it to 12 number spans and rebuild. Alright, so that means you have more to work with. It's going to be a lot smoother. Okay, so going back to the shape here, I'm going to crank up the width gonna go crank it up some more. Maybe 3. Oh, a little too big. Okay. I'm gonna really adjust this one here. So I'm gonna create a point and then bring down. Kind of tapers down here. Something like that. Yeah, tapers down like that. And of course I could add a bit more density here so we have more curves to work with. Going to the follicle shape and crank up the density a bit. Not too much. Don't want it to lag. But at the same time, we want enough so that it will follow, when we add our Xgen hair, it will follow the hair as much as possible. Like that. And what I could probably do, I think it needs a bit more repetition of braids here, so I'm gonna go to my clump width and bring it down, and then go back to my clump width here and crank it up. And I'm gonna go to vertex selection mode. Gonna go select the vertices, turn on soft selection, and actually I'm gonna turn on my Xgen for my main hair here. Make sure that I have something showing. I set it 30. That way you could see better what's going on. And I'm gonna select the vertices here. Think it could be brought down just a bit, something like that. Okay, probably could bring it up. There you go. So it's up like that, and I could make some adjustment on, I think, yeah, this braid here needs to meet up with this here, so I need to extend this braid so it will touch this here. So I'm gonna go back to my other one, the hair system 2. This is the second one I created. I go to my follicle, to my curve for that one, for this here, and I'm gonna go to vertex and I'm gonna move. There you go. I'm gonna, guess, rotate a bit. Move it down. Okay, and I think I'm gonna go to my third braid here. Go to vertex selection mode and gonna move it out and maybe do a little bit of rotation. Yeah, rotation a bit. Yeah, something like that. And yeah, kind of just stick it in there a bit. Alright, something like that. And I want to do a little render test to see what we're working with. So I'm gonna go and render this out. Okay, and I think it's a little too big. this braid here, and this braid's a little too big. And of course, the shader that you see here, it's not gonna look like this because we are using PFX. Later on, when we turn them into Xgen, it's gonna look more like the hair that we have here, okay? But we're just using PFX to get the shape down. All right. Okay, so I want to make it a little smaller, and so I'm gonna go to my PFX for follicle 1 here. All right, I'm gonna go to attribute editor, and I'm gonna go to my follicle shape. I want to make it smaller. Gonna bring it down so it repeats a bit more. I also want to keep this image so I could compare and contrast. Okay, and I'm gonna go crank up the width a bit. All right, and of course, gonna go probably crank up the density a bit. Okay, and I want to see how that looks like after making those changes. And there it is. Yeah, I think that's better, but I think it needs to be, it's sinking a little too much onto the hair here, so gonna go adjust it a bit. Gonna move it out. All right. Okay. I think. Let's see. Okay. And also adjusting the braid for this one. I go to my, I think that's the third one. Yeah, it is the third one. So I'm gonna go to my follicle 3 and bring down the width, clump width a bit, and maybe crank this up. Okay. And for the hair system, follicle 1, I want to crank it up just a little bit. Alright, I want to do another test, another render test. Maybe a little bit more like this. Alright. Okay, I think that is better. I think I want to go look at here. I think this might be a little too thick around here, so I'm gonna go to my width, clump width scale. So around here it's a little thick, so I'm going to just bring it down. Actually, that's not it. Okay, bring it down a bit. That. So let me bring it down a bit. Okay. And so I want it to still be smooth. And then here could be a little thicker maybe. A little thicker. Alright, I think something like that. And I just kind of want to see how it looks like when I render it from the front. I know it's not going to give us an accurate render, but it will give us something that we could visualize. I want to make sure this is shown a bit. Okay, I'm going to do a little render test. Just not gonna render the entire thing, just this side here. Okay, and looking at this here, this might be protruding a little too much, so I'm gonna keep this image. I'm gonna go ahead and adjust this a bit more. This is the follicle 2 attribute editor. I think this is the one. Yep, that's the one. The clump width scale. Okay, so for this one, I could just bring it a tad bit down. Oops. I don't want to create way too many points. Okay, something like that. And then I'm gonna go to vertex, select a vertex here, and just gonna push it in so it's not sticking out too much. Also this one, gonna push it in a bit, just a little bit. And then do another render test. And I'm just gonna render this portion. Okay, so there it is. Before or after. Alright, so I got the shape and the silhouette down. So this is more likely seeing how the overall silhouette would look like, not really how it's going, the actual shader and how the strengths is gonna play out. We're gonna see all that when we turn it into Xgen. Alright, so I am quite happy with the braids that I have here. After you are happy with the braids, you could turn them into curves now. So I'm going to start out by turning this one into curves. So selecting the PFX hair for this hair system, I'm going to go to modify, convert, paint effects to curves. There you go. So it had turned it into curves. If you scroll down, you should see the curves here. Alright, so there it is. PFX shape 1 curves. And I'm gonna go ahead and name this one braids left 1 curve. Alright. And I don't need the PFX anymore for the first hair system, so I'm gonna delete this PFX hair 1. And I don't need the hair system 1 anymore. Make sure you're deleting the right one. Next up is going to be this one here. Modify, convert to, paint effects to curves. Okay, and you should see it at the bottom. So it's by default it's gonna call it PFX hair shape and then the number and then curves. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and rename this braid left to curve new. And it's important to delete the PFX that comes with it. That way your computer's not gonna start lagging. So yeah, this will take a toll, so you need to delete it after you create your curves. And I'm also gonna delete the hair system too. Alright, next up is gonna be this one. Same thing. Modify, convert, paint effects to curves. Okay, and going to rename it right away. I'm gonna call this one braid back curve new. And I'm gonna go and delete the paint effects that comes with it. Where's the paint effects? right here. You need to delete the PFX first before you delete the hair system, because if you delete the hair system first, it's going to delete, it's going to delete the curves. So PFX delete first and then the hair system second. Alright, so I got all the curves that I need. I got my curves here that I'm going to be able to use for Xgen. And we have this and this on that side. What we could do is we could just make a copy and duplicate it on the other side so we have it all. Alright, so I'm gonna go to this one, I'm going to duplicate special, make sure it's a scale of -1, and duplicate special so it moves on the other side there. And yeah, which one is this? Okay, that one is that, this one, okay. Alright, I'm gonna have to rename this, the duplicate, I'm gonna rename this right to right, okay. And I'm gonna duplicate this one, actually this one here, okay. Alright, for this one, I'm gonna go ahead and name this one braid right to. Alright, we got our curves. In the next video, we are going to turn those curves into guides so we could use Xgen for it. Now that we have our curves, we could turn them into guides. We could use our geometry that we had for our sculpt to start off with. Okay, so this is it right here. There you go, that's the one. So for this one, we could go ahead and go to generate, create description, and for this one we could create a new collection and call it braids. And description, I could call this one, I'm gonna work with this here first, and this is called braids left 1. So I'm gonna go ahead and call this one braid left 1 underscore this. And for this one, braids underscore call for collection, and placing shaping guides, and hit create. All good. Now I could select the braids for this here, which is braid left 1. Go to utilities, and I also want to make sure I have, I already have update preview automatically, that's fine. And I'm going to add guides, and I could just delete the curves, that's fine. Before you delete the curves though, I really suggest that you make a copy of these curves. Alright, you export it, export selection, and save them so that in case something goes wrong with Xgen, you still have a copy of your curves that you could bring in later if you need to. Okay, but yeah, I already made a copy for this. I'm just gonna delete the curves and add guides. And there you go. And I could just hide the guides right now and go into primitives. I could set the density here to 1000. And there you go. Of course, there's not enough CV count. That's why we're not seeing the shape. So we could set it a higher value. Okay, and then if it just disappears, you could just click again and again. Alright, and I think that's about it. And of course, it's too thick. For the width, I'm going to set it to 0.0025. 0.025. For the tip here, I could set it to 0.684. Okay, so the density seems like there's not enough hair there, so I'm gonna go ahead and crank up the intensity to about 5,000. See how that works. And okay, cool. And I'm also gonna assign the same hair that I have, the hair physical shader that I have used for the main hair, I'm gonna assign it to the braids. So I'm gonna go to my happy shade, loading, and I'm gonna go to my collection, my braid collection here, and I'm gonna go to the description and assign that same hair shader onto the braids, and there you go. Okay, and I want to go ahead and do this one next. All right, so I'm gonna go select my geometry. All right, same geometry, sculpt geometry, and I'm gonna go to generate, create description, and this time I'm just gonna add the description in that existing collection, which is Braids collection. Same collection but just different descriptions. And this one I'm gonna call this one Braids braid left to underscore desk. There you go, and hit create. Okay, and I'm gonna select the curves that I have here, which is this one here, and I'm gonna go to my utilities and going to curves to guides, add guides, and hide the guides, and go to primitives. Same process. I believe I put 5,000 on this one, and CV count is going to be 70. Width is going to be 0.0025. Width ramp 0.684. Okay, and I'm going to assign that same material that I have for this one. I'm going to select my description for my braids left 2 and assign that blonde hair. There you go. And I want to go check it out right now. I'm going to do a little test render just to see how it looks like. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do another render. Go to my render view and going to just render just half of this because that's really all the changes that I made there. And I also want to make sure that if I go to Xgen that I have my extra hair showing for the front. Okay, I want to make sure I have some. There you go. So I'm going to do just half and see how it looks like so far. Okay, so I had to save the file and reopen it, and I rendered it again, and this is how it looks. I think it's looking pretty nice, and I really like it. I like the irregularities on the side there too. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and save this one, and we gotta do the other side here. Before we do the other side, I want to kind of see how it looks like here also at the back when it's rendered. Yeah, let me do a render test forward back. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just render this part out, and there it is. This here needs some work. It's look like it's a little bit sinking in onto the main hair, so I'm gonna have to fix that. I'm just gonna go ahead and save this view so I can easily go back to this view if I need to. To fix this, we're gonna have to manipulate the guides. Alright, so I'm gonna go to my braids collection, and this is gonna be the braids left too, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the guides for this one, and we could go to our sculpting, go to Xgen tab, and we're gonna find a sculpt tool here. The sculpt guides. This will allow you to manipulate your guides and move it. So you could bring up the brush size, hold B and drag your mouse to bring it up. Okay, so I could just easily just move it. Okay, something like that. And you need to update your guide. You need to update your hair once you're done moving it. Just update it. There you go. And I could hide the guides again. I like to hide the guides because I feel like it bogs down my computer. Okay, something like that. And then I could go ahead and go to my back here and go ahead and re-render this and see the new result. And there's the new one. I still think it needs to be pushed back. Some part of it is still being synced into the hair, so I think it's around this area. So I'm gonna turn on the guides again and go to sculpting. Yeah, and just gonna move this forward, right, something like that. And of course update it and hide the guides and go back and re-render. See how it looks. Okay, so we got before and after. Before and after. Cool. Now we can do this other braid here. So, going to select. Make sure I have my geometry. Alright, I'm gonna select my geometry for my sculpt. Come on now. There you go. And going to create description. And I want it in the same location as the other braids. So braids, same collection as the other braids. So braids collection, but it's just gonna have a different description. So I'm gonna call this one, this is gonna be the back one that I'm doing now. So I'm gonna put braid back underscore disc. It's always important to keep your name organized so you don't get lost and confused what you're selecting and what you're manipulating. Alright, and it great. And okay, there you go. And next up is going to select the braid back curves and turn them into guides. Going to utilities here and add guides. There you go. And hide the guides. Going to primitives and gonna set the density to 5,000. I think this is what I have for the other. I just want to double check. Okay, so it is 5,000. Alright, and CV curves to 70. Width is 0.0025. Okay, and the tip, bring it down because tip are always smaller. 0.684. Okay. Alright, and of course I gotta make sure that I put in the same material that I have on this one too. So back onto the hypershade. Gonna go to my braids collection and go to braid back description and assign the material. There you go. Let me see how that looked. Going to do a render here. Yeah, render like this. Okay, cool. And there's the braid there. I think this here, I believe this braid here around this area need to be pushed in a bit. So I'm gonna go to the hair guides for this one, this braid here. That's gonna be braid left to okay. Yeah, I think that was the one the braid left to. Yeah, and I'm gonna turn on the guide, go to sculpting, and push this in there. Okay, and update it and hide the guides. Okay, something like that. Alright, now I'm gonna do this side here. Okay, so going to select the geometry once again. Same process now for the rest. Alright, same process. Going to create description, and it's going to be in the Braids collection. This one is going to be called, I think I'll do this braid first. So that's going to be Braids right 1. Braid right 1 underscore this. And placing and shaping guides, and hit create. I'm going to go to braid right curves here. Alright, so this is the one, utilities, and add guides, and hide the guide, primitives, set the density to 5000, and CV count 70 to give it that braid shape, 0.0025, and tip here is going to be 0.684. Okay, and let's not forget the hair color. Going to the description, which is going to be the right one here. There you go. Next up is going to be this braid here. Alright, going to select geometry. Alright, and yeah, braids collection, and this one is going to be called Braids right 2. Braid right 2 underscore this. And it's going to go to the braid collection, placing guides. And of course, going to select the last curve that we have, which is braid right 2 right here. And go to utilities and add guides. Hide the guides. Density 5000. And this one is 0.684 like the others. Okay, and let's not forget to add our hyper shade for our blonde color. And I think this of course needs to be adjusted, kind of like the other braid here. So I'm gonna turn on the guides for that. Go to sculpting, and I'm gonna have to move this. That way it will show. Okay, and this has to be inside here. And probably I'm gonna update this. Hide the guides. I want to kind of move this out the back braid, so I'm going to go to the back braid, and I'm going to go show the guides so I could manipulate the guides. For some reason it's not showing. Okay, a little issue. So I'm gonna go to my back braid here, and that's no problem. I could just go to my guides here. All right, Okay, let me see. Oh, there you go. So I selected all the guides. Sometimes you gotta do this. There's a little glitch in Xgen. So selecting all the guides, and now it works. I could go ahead and move it. And of course, gonna go and update it. And hide guides. Okay, and I wanna check how it looks like. Going to render this entire thing. Okay, so that's the render. And this part is not showing much. Yeah, let me do more of a render here. Okay, yeah, so you can see it's not showing around here, so I gotta go to my guides here and kind of move it out some more. So I'm gonna go, I think this is the braid rights 2, which is right here. Okay, so that's the braid rights 2. Go to braids, braid right 2. Okay, I'm gonna turn on the guides and do some sculpting. Okay, move it out. And of course this one needs to go back. That's about it. Come on, show again. There you go. You might want to click this more than once if it doesn't show the first time. Alright, let me see. Another render. Going to render this part. Okay, almost there. Just gotta move it some more. Go. And I'm gonna go back to my back hair view. Okay, and there it is. I think it's quite I think what I could do is go to my main hair. I think I moved this already too much, so maybe I could adjust the main hair instead. Go to main hair. The main hair has a lot of guides here. I'm gonna turn on the guides though. Okay, and go to my yeah, this is a lot of guides. Another thing that I could do to make it easier is I could select a portion of this. A portion of that. And hold control and deselect. Parts that are not needed, select. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, so it's the guides here that are like kind of falling there that's causing that issue. So I could select the ones that are out here. Alright. Okay, so I think this is the one that I need to move. So using the sculpting brush. I'm gonna see if that will work. Okay. Anything else? I think Also around here, that one, gonna move it. Probably this here, also move it. And of course, hide the guide and update it. Okay, and going to do another render. Okay, let me find a better view. I think I'm gonna go back to my braids, to my braid right to here. Show the guides and gonna move it back. All right, and show it again. Come on, show. There you go. Okay, I'm gonna render through here. Okay, so this is probably a better view where we could see it better. Alright, I think this will do. It's no longer, the hair is not sinking into the main hair anymore. Okay, now next up is I want to just hide my geometry here, and I want to do a front render for this, for this side here. I haven't seen that side, so going to go ahead and render. Okay, so I think this part of the braid looked pretty good. I just think that this one here, it's sinking in too much. So once again, I am gonna go back to the braid for this part. Gonna go to braid right one. I would think so, yeah, right actually it's right two. Turn on the guides and go here. Okay, I'm gonna move this a little bit. That way it's not sinking. Okay. I'm gonna, okay, go ahead and, all right. Gonna go and do the front. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and re-render this part here. Okay, cool. So now it's showing a lot more. I'm gonna do a full render just to see how the overall shape of this look. And there's the full render. So we got our braids there going. It's looking pretty good to me. I might have a little bit of lighting here coming on this side just so we could add a little bit more brightness on the braids that we have here. But yeah, we'll see. And if you guys notice that the displacement map for the character is not showing, because if you guys remember, we have duplicated a mesh from this here. We actually duplicated a mesh for the sculpt, so that's the reason why. If you go here and you go to your displacement map, remember every time you manipulate the mesh, you're gonna have to go back to the subdivision and set everything back again to how it was. But I'm gonna do that later because I'm gonna be still extracting some mesh like for the eyebrows and for the lashes. But yeah, I just want to let you guys know that. And yeah, and that's it for, I think for the next part of the braids, we need to do something here. I want to add what I could do is I could add a little bit of maybe yeah, for this one maybe I could add like a little bit more hair here, and I'm probably gonna adjust that manually. And I'll see you guys in the next video.